Have you ever stopped to wonder why some apps just feel right? Like they know what you want before you do, and then others make you want to, I don't know, throw your phone into the ocean? Well, it's not magic. It's actually a secret blueprint. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that blueprint using a really fascinating design guide from a place you'd never expect, the energy giant Thai Oil. We have all been there, right? That feeling of pure joy when an app is just smooth, intuitive, and beautiful. And the complete opposite, that total frustration when one is just a confusing mess. The difference between those two experiences? It's not a fluke. It's all part of a very deliberate plan. Okay, so this is where it all happens. We all walk around with what's called a mental model for how an app should work. Years of using phones has taught us that a save icon probably lives in the top right corner. But the designer has their own plan, the conceptual model. And when your model and their model clash, well, that's when you get that feeling of, this just doesn't make any sense. Truly great app design is all about closing that gap. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with that core problem, then look at the very first huge decision every developer has to make. We'll get into how they design a brand's unique feel, what actually makes an app intuitive, the tiny little details that make a huge difference, and finally, what all these hidden rules really mean for you. So, the very first fork in the road for any app is this classic dilemma. Do you build one app that's perfectly tailored for iPhones and a completely separate one for Androids? That's what we call the native approach. Or do you try to build a single app that just kind of works on both? That's cross-platform. Now, what's so interesting here is the why. For a big company like Thai Oil, this isn't just some theoretical question. A survey of their own employees found that their users are split almost perfectly down the middle. And get this, a whopping 38% of them use both. You just can't afford to ignore one group. You have to build for everybody. And this chart just lays out the trade-off perfectly. Going native, building those custom apps, gives you that buttery smooth high-performance feel that's perfectly in sync with your phone. But it costs a ton more time and money. Cross-platform is way cheaper and faster because you write the code once. The downside, you might get some weird performance lags or a user interface that just feels a little off on your device. It's always this balancing act between perfection and practicality. So, take a look. This is a cross-platform app. On the left, you've got the iOS version. On the right, Android. It's the same app from the same code. But just look at those subtle differences in the date picker at the bottom. It's these tiny little inconsistencies that create that gap between what we expect, our mental model, and how the app actually works. All right, so whether you go native or cross-platform, the next step is absolutely crucial. You have to define the app's look and feel. This is where you move from the technical stuff to creating a visual identity that people will instantly recognize and hopefully trust. And it all starts right here with the logo. This isn't just a picture. It's the anchor for the entire visual language of the brand. The colors, the shapes, the whole vibe it gives off. This one little thing dictates all the design rules that come after it. Now, the rules for color are incredibly specific, and it's really all about psychology. Yeah, use the brand's pink and blue, but never, ever in equal measure. They have a strict rule, keep a 70-30 or 80-20 ratio. Why? Because it's easier on the eyes and doesn't create a ton of visual noise. And that vibrant pink, that's reserved for what they call state indicators. Basically anything that needs your attention, like an active button. It's a visual cue that guides you without you even having to think about it. The same idea applies to text. The guidelines are super clear. Don't go crazy with a million different fonts. It just looks chaotic. Instead, use different sizes and weights to create a clear visual hierarchy, so your eye knows exactly what the most important thing on the screen is. And here's a little pro tip from the guide. Designers are told to choose fonts with a large X height. That's literally the height of a lowercase x, and it makes a huge difference in how easy a font is to read on a small screen. So a beautiful app is great and all, but if it's a nightmare to actually use, it's a failure. This is where we get into the rules of feel, the principles that make an app so intuitive that you never have to stop and ask, wait, what am I supposed to do next? Designers basically have three main tools for navigation. If an app is packed with information, like your phone's settings menu, they use a hierarchical structure, where you keep drilling down deeper and deeper. If it just has a few main sections, like the bottom bar on Instagram, they'll use a flat structure. And for apps like a newsreader, it's content-driven. You just kind of scroll and explore freely. And let's talk about touch for a second. The number one golden rule is don't get fancy. We've all spent years learning to tap, to swipe, to pinch and zoom. When an app tries to invent some brand new gesture, it's just frustrating. It's like trying to learn a new language just to order a coffee. It's totally unnecessary, and it's a classic design mistake. Okay, now we get to the really good stuff. The tiny, specific rules for all the everyday things you interact with. The things that really separate a good app from a truly great one. These are the details you feel, even if you don't consciously notice them. Just think about permission requests. The bad way to do it is to hit a user with 10 pop-ups the second they open the app. The right way is to ask for permission in context. You need the microphone? Ask when the user actually hits the record button and just briefly explain why you need it. It's all about being polite and building trust. The guidelines for logging in are all about making things secure, but also totally effortless. I mean, why force someone to create yet another password when they can just use a trusted, secure system they already have, like sign in with Apple or Google? It's safer for them and way, way more convenient. Even something as simple as previewing a file has its own set of rules. Features like Quick Look make sure that you can tap on any attachment, a PDF, a picture, whatever, and get a fast, clean, consistent preview without actually needing to have that specific app installed. It just removes a point of friction, so everything just works. You know, dark mode isn't just about looking cool. The actual design rule behind it is based on human factors. The goal is to reduce eye strain and just make reading more comfortable when you're in a low-light environment. It's a decision driven by ergonomics, not just by what's trendy. And this is just brilliant. It shows how deep these rules go. Even the keyboard is part of the system. When you tap a field to enter a phone number, the number pad should just pop up. When you're typing an email, the @ symbol should be right there, easy to find. The goal is always to anticipate what the user needs and make their life just a little bit easier. So, from those massive decisions, like which platform to build for, all the way down to the tiny details of which keyboard to show, we've seen how this whole system of rules governs every single aspect of app design. So let's zoom out and talk about what this all means for you and the apps you use every single day. Here's the most important takeaway. The best apps feel effortless by design, not by accident. They are the result of a deliberate, super thoughtful system of rules, just like the one we've been exploring. These guidelines are like the invisible architecture that makes an app feel less like a tool and more like an extension of your own thoughts. And that leaves us with one final thought. The next time you open up your favorite app, I want you to take a closer look. Notice the colors, the fonts, the way the keyboard seems to know what you need. And ask yourself, what hidden rules are at play here? You might be surprised by the secret blueprint you uncover.